But thank you so much for having me here today. And thank you for the great introduction, a bit of a expectation level that's just put a little pressure on me now. But hopefully I will be able to enjoy you for the next 25 minutes. Today's topic is about what we experience on a daily basis when we go to work. Some of the things that are brought today are not new, are not surprising, yet I hope that you will actually spend some time, reflect a little upon it, and maybe also start using it and practicing yourself at your work. So let's just get to it. So many of us sitting here in the room have been working with experience designs, are experience designers, are related to experience design, and all of us have by DNA an outside-in mindset. We've been focusing on helping companies through the past 2 decades, for helping them to become more customer-centric by preaching, coaching, teaching that we should focus on customers. And businesses are actually embracing this. They are investing in it, and they're investing in us as resources. And in that journey, a quote popped up. Happy customers comes from happy employees. Now, we put a lot of focus on the first part of that sentence, happy customers. But what about the last sentence, comes from happy employees? This is what I'm going to talk to you about today. So let's begin at the first step in the journey, which is the job hunt. Now, many of you have been applying for a job where you wanted to share and contribute with your talented skills and your knowledge. But what happens when we start this amazing job hunt? Raise your hand if you can recognize something like this. You crawl through the internet, and this is what you are exposed to. Innovation Ecosystem Manager. What do you think is required of that? No idea. How about Head of Operating Excellence in Design, and you are a director at the same time? These are real titles that I crawl through LinkedIn just to find for today's presentation, just to see, okay, what's out there. When we see this, there could be 2 reasons for it. One reason is that it should actually trigger your curiosity. So the companies who would put it out and said, oh, let's see if we can get some fancy people to come and actually look at our job position. Or it could be a red alert that somebody in the company actually don't know what they're looking for. And in many of the cases, it turns out that we spend a lot of time crawling through the job description, finding out a little bit about the company, finding out about the million tasks that are required to fulfill an innovation and new partnership lead role, and then something about what you should do as a person and how you should interact as a person. If we're lucky, there might be a name that you could actually contact to get further information. In some cases, that contact person are either a headhunter or HR partner, which means that those people really don't know the difference between our competence, our skills, our master discipline. Give you an example. I've met CXs saying that they were UXs. So first question that I asked him, do you do rapid prototyping? What's that? Or wireframing? No. I am a UX designer as a CX. I do research. Says, then you're a researcher. Whole different thing. UX is saying they're CXs. So I ask UXs, well, do you know how to facilitate and embed a service model? Yeah. I know everything about digital self-service solution. That was not the request here. The request is, do you know how to master a service model? That's nothing to do with an interface or how you create a solution on a digital platform. And the answer is, of course, no. So even amongst ourselves, there is a little bit of hesitation of who are we, what are we doing, and what is it that we're providing. So we couldn't blame the headhunters or the HR partners for not knowing, but we could then be more specific, at least when we do the introduction also in our resumes and so forth. So that's one of the things that happens when we try to find and apply for a job that is actually quite time consuming just to nail it and understanding what is required of us. If we then, however, are lucky, we get invited to an interview, and then the funny part happens again. If you make it through, there are two types of interviews that you could be invited to. The first type of interview is made by people who want to hire you. The second type of interviews are made by people who are really interested in you. Maybe you recognize this pattern. In the first case, you are invited in to participate in a job interview. You're invited in, you have a cup of coffee, you sit down, and then the people sitting in front of you will sit with a paper and they will look you straight in the eyes, and then you will say, please try to explain a little bit about you. And then you start getting off, and then they interrupt you, says, it says here that you started in company A. So how long were you there and what did you do? And then you reply politely, I was there for this amount of time, I did this and this. Why did you leave? The next question will then be. And then you reply, well, I left because of. Then they look down again in their piece of paper and then look at you and then will say, so you went to company B. So how long were you there and what did you do and why did you leave? So they repeat the same question all over the time. If you're lucky and get invited in by something or somebody who's interested in you, you would be asked questions like, what is your passion? What is it that motivates you, that gets you out of bed in the morning? Why do you think that you can contribute to this job? What are your preferences? What are you motivated by? What kind of jobs do you like to do? Are you a researcher? Are you a UX designer? When you say UX design, what do you mean by that? Elaborate on that. So it's the same kind of interview with the same kind of purpose, but the outcome of it is two different pictures. So maybe there's room for improvement there as well. The second interview, or the third interview, or even in some case, the fourth interview, that's where the real fun show begins. Because in the second interviews, some of you might have experienced that the company would like you to fulfill a concrete case that you should solve on their behalf, which means that they will give you an example that's happening in their company and ask you to solve it for free. If you then manage to navigate through whatever answer they would have loved, then you are invited into the third interview. The third interview are normally a kind of test, or should I say tests in plural, because normally you will get a math test, a logic test, a verbal test, and a personality test, and it takes approximately between 1.5 hours to 2 hours to fulfill those tests. And after you fulfilled it, you are invited in to sort of defend yourself on why did you answer the way that you do. I'm not saying that those who invented those tests didn't have a good purpose or good intention to do that. I'm just saying that these tests are based on some sort of neuro survey search, and it's a great indicator to put us into a box where we have our first prioritization and our second prioritization in preference and motivations. Now imagine if I could actually invite you in instead and at the first interview tell you, hey, I would actually like to learn a little bit about how you work. Could you please bring your own case? Could you just give me an example of what project or product you built that was worthy for you and where you actually performed your best? And walk us through what happened and where were the challenges and where were the strengths and what did you think, instead of actually taking advantage of you and making you solve a task for us as a company. The second time of interviews could be not an interview where we test you, but where you, instead of spending 1.5 hours fulfilling it, 1.5 hours replying on why you fulfilled it the way that you did, maybe just smash them 3 hours together and invite you in for a team session. Because then we could observe you on how you interact with the team. Are you actually the one who pushes forward? Are you more the one who are the analytic mind? And in that sense, you could get a better understanding, and you would also see how you interacted in the chemistry with the rest of the team. So there is another way that you could actually lead these interviews, but unfortunately we're not there yet. So the outcome of it all is, of course, that a company can end up with a lose-lose situation as well for the employees, because they simply don't know what it was that they were applying for or what they got because they asked the wrong questions. If you are, however, lucky to proceed and you are invited in to work with this new company, on your first day is the first day that you interact with your leaders. So what happens when you are introduced to your new boss? I took the advantage of taking 3 different kind of leadership behavior patterns, and I'm quite sure that you will recognize some of them.